Welcome to another episode of HR Game Changers. I'm Dave.
And I'm Louisa. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something incredibly relevant right now.
Definitely. It's a topic that's really reshaping, well, pretty much every workplace. And we've got some fascinating material to unpack.
Absolutely. We're tackling this big question. As technology, automation becomes more and more embedded in our work lives, does the human element become less important?
And the sources we've looked at, recent research, industry analyses, some thought leadership pieces, including insights from Brett Beauchamp Russell, they actually say. No.
Right.
Quite the opposite, in fact.
Right. That's the surprising part. So this deep dive is all about unpacking why our human-centric skills are apparently more crucial than ever. What are they? And importantly, how can we actively work on strengthening them? Let's jump in.
Well, the first thing that jumps out from the research, quite starkly actually, is that the more automated work becomes, the more essential these human skills are. Technology handles routine tasks brilliantly with amazing efficiency, but the skills that are fundamentally about being human, things like empathy, adaptability, really nuanced communication, they're what set people and, frankly, organizations apart now.
That feels a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? You might think, okay, more tech means I need more tech skills. But you're saying the sources really emphasize these softer skills as the key differentiator.
That's exactly it, because the real value isn't just in running the machines anymore. It's navigating the messy, complex human spaces where the tech, well, it just can't operate effectively.
Okay.
The analysis we looked at consistently shows that people with strong soft skills, they're the ones who genuinely thrive in these algorithm-shaped environments. And these aren't just, nice to haves. The sources frame them as critical.
Critical for what exactly?
Both for individual careers, think resilience, adaptability, and for the overall health and innovative capacity of the organization itself. The idea is that technology should really amplify our human strengths, not replace or diminish them.
So it's about using the tech tools, but really doubling down on what makes us uniquely human, like building real connections, understanding team dynamics. The sources mention how this turns challenges into collaborative successes.
Precisely. Think of tech providing the speed, the data processing, but the human element brings the judgment, the ethical lens, the capacity for genuine understanding that, gives work meaning and drives real impact.
Okay, that clarifies the why. So let's get into the what. What are these essential human skills the sources keep highlighting? One that comes up again and again is emotional intelligence. They frame it as a kind of bedrock.
Yes, absolutely. A foundation for effective leadership, certainly, but also for teamwork in general.
How so?
What's really compelling is how leaders who are self-aware, who can recognize and manage their own emotions, create this ripple effect. They foster environments built on trust, on psychological safety.
Right, psychological safety. So people feel okay speaking up.
Exactly. Sharing ideas, even challenging ones, giving honest feedback without fear of, negative consequences.
And it's not just the leader's self-awareness, is it? The sources mentioned it helps teams too.
It does. That self-awareness helps entire teams navigate uncertainty with more confidence. And when individual employees are tuned into their colleagues' emotional states, maybe picking up on stress or excitement, it cultivates a much healthier culture. It really boosts collaboration and, frankly, well-being.
Can you give an example? Sometimes these concepts feel a bit abstract.
Sure. The research gives a good one. Imagine a team racing towards a big deadline. Tensions high, naturally.
Yep, been there.
A manager with high EI, emotional intelligence, isn't just tracking tasks, they notice things. Maybe a subtle change in someone's tone on a video call, a sign of stress.
Right.
So instead of just pushing harder, this manager might pause, maybe reach out privately, offer support, perhaps even subtly adjust workloads or priorities to prevent burnout.
So it's those small human interventions.
Exactly. They're not just management tactics, they're acts of connection, empathy. They reinforce belonging and ultimately motivate people far more effectively than just cracking the whip.
That makes it very concrete. Those moments tech just can't replicate.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The sources also put a lot of weight on something they call durable skills. What are those? What makes them durable?
Well, industry reports are highlighting skills like critical thinking, creativity, and advanced problem solving. They offer a genuinely lasting competitive edge.
Lasting because?
Because the term durable is key here. Unlike specific technical knowledge, knowing one software program, for example, which can become obsolete pretty quickly,
Right, as tech changes.
these fundamental cognitive abilities endure. They equip you with the capacity to learn, to adapt, to pivot, really, no matter how fast your industry or the tools might evolve.
So the specific software might change, but the underlying ability to analyze, think creatively, solve new problems, that's the constant value. How do the sources suggest we actually cultivate these? It sounds important, but maybe hard to practice.
It requires intention, for sure. One key recommendation is deliberately seeking out assignments that stretch you, that push you beyond your comfort zone.
So volunteer for the scary projects.
Sort of. Projects that force you to learn something new or tackle a problem differently. Collaboration is another big one. Working with people from different departments or disciplines, those diverse perspectives, they're incredibly fertile ground for sparking creativity.
Okay, stretch assignments, cross-functional work. Are there more specific activities mentioned?
Yeah, they do get practical. Things like participating in scenario-based workshops, tackling complex hypothetical problems, or joining innovation hackathons. These are great for sharpening creative thinking and building resilience under pressure.
What about feedback?
Crucial. Regularly asking for targeted feedback from mentors, from peers, not just how did I do, but specific input on, say, your problem-solving approach in that meeting or how effectively you collaborated on that project. This helps you see strengths and, importantly, blind spots.
So it's about building that core problem-solving muscle, regardless of the specific task.
Precisely. It builds a mindset that transcends any single role or technology.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to communication. The sources are really clear on this. Even with remote work, hybrid models,
Right.
clear, concise, persuasive communication, still absolutely fundamental.
Oh, absolutely. No question. The nuances matter more than ever, perhaps. How you structure a crucial email, how you deliver an engaging virtual presentation that actually hold people's attention.
Yeah, keeping people engaged remotely is tough.
It is. Or even just adapting your tone and message for different audiences, different contexts. The sources show these aren't just basic skills. They really differentiate top performers.
And it's not just about sending messages,
Yeah,
right? It's a two-way thing.
Exactly. The sources heavily emphasize active listening, truly hearing what others are saying, and providing mindful, constructive feedback. These are critical for building mutual respect, real understanding.
Which is probably even harder when you're not in the same room.
It can be. You have to be more deliberate. Pay close attention to the nonverbal cues. You do have facial expressions on video, tone of voice. Being attuned helps avoid the misinterpretations that are so easy with just text or audio.
Do they offer any practical communication tips? Little things we can
He
do?
did. Simple but powerful practices like summarizing key points at the end of a conversation just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Good one.
Or intentionally asking open-ended questions, how or what if questions, to encourage deeper thinking and really draw out different perspectives. The core message is effective communication isn't just about the words, it's about ensuring alignment between words, tone, body language, the whole package to genuinely connect.
Okay, so we've talked about what these skills are: emotional intelligence, durable skills, communication, and why they're increasingly valuable.
Right.
Here's a practical challenge. How can organizations actually, measure and foster the growth of these skills? They feel softer, harder to quantify.
That's a great question, and it's where leading organizations are having to get creative. The sources outline several approaches. Peer assessments are one, colleagues giving feedback on collaboration or communication skills.
Oh, wait.
Real-time feedback tools are another, allowing for immediate, specific input right after an interaction, perhaps. And reflective self-evaluations, prompting individuals to honestly assess their own performance in these areas.
I like the idea mentioned about keeping a journal after key interactions. Reflecting on a presentation or a difficult conversation seems like a really tangible way to spot your own patterns.
It really is. Very powerful for self-awareness. Other tools mentioned include things like pulse surveys, quick checks on team sentiment, which can signal issues with communication or psychological safety,
Right.
and 360-degree feedback, of course, gathering input from managers, peers, direct reports to get that rounded view of how your interpersonal behaviors are actually landing.
So multiple data points.
Yes. And crucially, the sources stress setting specific, maybe even measurable milestones for developing these skills. Perhaps aiming to improve team feedback scores on psychological safety or communication clarity by a certain percentage, and embedding these goals into performance reviews That gives them real strategic weight.
Right, and makes it clear it's not just a nice to have. Okay, let's tackle the elephant in the room. AI, artificial intelligence. With AI automating so much, doesn't that logically reduce the need for human skills?
Well, that's the common assumption, but the research actually points in the opposite direction. While AI is fantastic at automating routine, predictable tasks, it actually increases the demand for human skills that don't just operate the tech, but actively complement
And
it.
complement it how?
Think about it. AI can analyze massive data sets, spot patterns humans would miss, do it incredibly fast, but interpreting those insights empathetically, ethically, with a real understanding of the human context, that takes human judgment.
Ah, okay. So AI provides the what, the data, the patterns. But humans provide the so what and the what should we do about it, ethically, culturally.
Precisely. Professionals who blend technical know-how with strong emotional intelligence, good judgment, they're incredibly valuable. They can leverage AI's power while detecting nuances. Algorithms often miss like cultural factors impacting behavior, or the ethical implications of an AI-driven decision, or just the impact on team morale.
The customer service example in the sources really brought this home for me.
Yeah, it's a classic. AI chatbots. Great for handling simple, standard queries 204/7. But when a customer is genuinely upset or their situation is complex, requires real understanding.
You need a person.
You need a skilled human who can show empathy, listen actively, navigate that emotionally charged situation with sensitivity, and find a real solution. That human oversight, that perspective is vital. It ensures AI isn't just efficient, but also accountable, culturally aware, aligned with our values.
And employers are noticing this need.
Definitely. Market analyses mentioned in the sources show employers are increasingly seeking these hybrid skill sets. Even for highly technical roles, recruiters say adaptability, curiosity, collaboration are now top priorities. It's not just about whether you can code, it's can you work effectively with others, including AI, and adapt as everything changes.
So being data savvy and having strong human skills, that's the powerful combination. You need both the analysis and the relationship building.
Exactly right. Candidates who can demonstrate both, they're the ones in high demand. They bridge that gap between what technology can do and what truly makes an impact in the human world.
This suggests organizations need to do more than just hire for these skills, though. They need to build a culture that really values and reinforces them day to day.
Absolutely. You can't just bolt on a training program. Creating a culture where soft skills thrive requires genuine leadership buy-in. It needs supportive norms embedded throughout the organization.
What does that look like practically?
Leaders have to model the behavior, actively inviting diverse perspectives, not just paying lip service, publicly recognizing achievements that clearly stemmed from strong collaboration or empathy, celebrating shared successes as team wins, not just individual ones.
And linking it to progression.
That's critical. Embedding soft skill objectives into performance reviews, into
Wow.
promotion criteria, that sends a powerful signal about their strategic importance. If developing your empathy or communication skills helps you get ahead, people will prioritize it.
Any interesting examples of how companies are doing this?
The sources mention things like collaboration challenges, setting up cross-functional teams to tackle real business problems. It's a practical way to practice communication across silos, negotiation, collective problem solving in a relatively safe space. Tying success in these kinds of initiatives to recognition makes the message clear.
Okay, that covers the organizational side. But let's bring it back to the individual. For someone listening right now thinking, okay, I want to work on this, what are some concrete, actionable steps they could take, drawing from the sources?
Great question. The sources offer a pretty clear roadmap. First step, some form of structured self-assessment.
Know thyself.
Pretty much. There are lots of online tools, frameworks. The goal is to get an objective sense of your current strengths and, maybe more importantly, areas for growth in things like emotional intelligence, communication style, adaptability.
Okay, step one, assess. Then what?
Then, be proactive about targeted learning. Find workshops, maybe digital courses, even micro-learning modules that focus specifically on skills you want to build. Active listening, maybe, conflict resolution, public speaking, creativity techniques, even short bursts of focused learning can make a real difference.
Volunteering for those cross-functional projects comes up again here, doesn't it? As a way to practice.
It absolutely does. It forces you out of your usual silo, forces you to engage with different perspectives, different working styles. Excellent practice for adaptability and creative problem solving, plus you expand your network. Win-win.
And feedback. How does that fit in for individual development?
It's essential to create a consistent feedback loop. Don't wait for the annual review. Actively, regularly ask peers, mentors, your manager for specific input. How did I handle that difficult conversation? How could I have contributed more effectively in that team meeting? Be specific in your ask.
And that journaling idea seems relevant here too, for self-reflection.
Very much so. Taking just 5 minutes after a key interaction, a challenging client call, a team brainstorm to jot down what went well, what didn't, how you felt, what you could do differently next time. That reflection helps you spot patterns and set small, concrete goals for improvement. Reviewing it periodically shows you how far you've come.
Any other tips?
One more the sources often mention: practicing mindfulness or basic stress management techniques. Simple things like taking a few conscious breaths before a potentially stressful meeting. It can significantly improve your composure, your ability to listen actively and respond with empathy rather than react defensively.
Those are all really practical steps anyone could start thinking about this week. The sources also touch on mentorship and peer learning, specifically for these skills.
Yes, they're powerful accelerators. Mentorship, whether you're the mentor or mentee, provides this invaluable space. You can discuss real-world challenges, practice navigating tricky conversations hypothetically, get feedback on your leadership or influencing style, and develop empathy just by understanding someone else's journey.
And peer learning, like study groups for soft skills.
Kind of. Peer learning circles are fantastic. Small groups getting together, maybe discussing case studies, maybe even role-playing difficult scenarios in a safe, supportive environment. It's highly effective for honing those interpersonal skills. Plus, sharing best practices and lessons learned just speeds up everyone's growth.
I found the idea of reverse mentoring really interesting.
It's brilliant. Junior employees mentoring senior leaders. Often it's around new tech or communication norms, but it can be broader. The senior leader gets fresh perspectives, stays current. The junior employee gets exposure, develops their own coaching skills, builds relationships. It's a fantastic way to foster cross-generational learning and skill development.
So as people work on these skills, individually or with others, how important is recognizing progress? It feels like slow work sometimes.
Oh, it's vital for staying motivated. Developing these skills is a journey. It's not like learning a piece of software where suddenly you know it. So acknowledging and celebrating the progress along the way is key.
Celebrating small wins.
Exactly. Successfully mediating a conflict between team members, delivering a presentation that really connected, getting positive feedback on your listening skills. Acknowledge those moments. It reinforces the effort.
And can organizations help foster that culture of celebration?
Definitely. The sources mention simple team rituals. Things like shout-out Fridays, where people specifically recognize colleagues for demonstrating empathy or great collaboration, or peer applause sessions. Even simple gratitude exercises in team meetings can boost morale and highlight these behaviors. And finally, the sources make a strong link between these human skills and overall resilience.
Also,
While practices that support soft skill development, self-awareness, emotional regulation, stress management are also fundamental to self-care and preventing burnout. Maintaining healthy work-life integration allows you to consistently show up as your best human self. And crucially, when setbacks happen, like a miscommunication leads to an error.
which they inevitably do.
Right. Viewing those not as failures, but as learning opportunities. Doing a quick post-mortem discussion, not to assign blame, but to understand what happened and how to improve next time. That fosters a growth mindset. It builds resilience, turning difficulties into fuel for future improvement.
Okay, so wrapping all this up, what's the big takeaway message the sources are sending?
I think the clearest conclusion is that nurturing these human-centric skills, it isn't just a nice extra, it's a fundamental strategic investment. For individuals, it's about resilience and career longevity. For teams, it's about engagement and high performance. And for organizations, it's a critical driver of innovation and adaptability.
So even as AI gets more sophisticated, maybe because AI gets more sophisticated, the sources argue that the real differentiator is us, our human touch. That unique capacity we have to connect, to understand, to empathize, to adapt with judgment and, well, integrity.
Precisely. Embracing and actively developing our emotional intelligence, honing our communication, cultivating those durable thinking skills, that's what ensures we remain indispensable, capable of navigating the complexity, inspiring others, and driving truly meaningful outcomes, even as the technological landscape shifts dramatically around us.
We've covered a lot today why these human skills are surging in importance. Drilled down into emotional intelligence, durable skills, effective communication, looked at how to measure and grow them, the interplay with AI, building the right culture, and fostering resilience. It really seems the future isn't less human, it's just human in different perhaps more essential ways.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listeners. As you go about your work this week, maybe consider this. How might consciously focusing on strengthening just one of these skills, maybe deciding to practice genuinely active listening in your next team meeting, or trying a brief mindfulness exercise before a conversation, might be challenging. How might that small shift potentially change the dynamic or the outcome of that interaction?
Or perhaps, where do you see AI potentially increasing the value of a specific human interaction you regularly have, precisely because it requires empathy or nuance or connection that tech can't provide? Some powerful questions to mull over. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for joining us for another episode of HR Game Changers. Until next time, keep innovating, keep learning, and keep changing the game.